Welcome to the Connecting the Dots podcast. This is your Longevity Playbook, a series created for executives and decision makers in health, fitness, physical activity, regenerative health, sport, and related technologies. I'm your host, Jennifer Halsall. In this episode, we explore the business case for cognitive fitness, from dual tasking and reaction training to performance metrics and real-world application. Cognitive fitness is redefining how we age, train, and innovate. I'm joined by Anna, founder of Sparked in Singapore, and Tarek from Functional Training Institute, as we unpack why brain health belongs in your strategy. Let's connect the dots. All right, welcome. I'm really excited to welcome Anna and Tarek to our first longevity podcast. And let's go ahead and kick it right off. Let's connect the dots. Anna, can you tell me the story from where you started professionally to where your business is to how it connects to longevity at this moment?
Sure. I started my career in exercise and fitness back in London now 20 years ago, where I worked for high-end personal training studios, and I was working a lot with clients that had all different needs and different goals. And so that's where I started, and I worked there for 10 years, more or less. I then moved to Singapore, and when I was about to turn 40, and after my 3 kids, I realized and started thinking what were some of the things that were going to be very, very important for me as I am aging, in this aging process, and what were some of the aspects that I really wanted to maintain in my older days when I'm essentially 70, 80, 90. What are some of the things that I really want to keep up and do? And they relate back to things I love in my life. So my kids, so remembering my kids' names when I'm at a certain age, but also being able to travel, being able to have fun with my friends and family and so on. So that's when I started to think about fitness in a broader aspect, as per se, in a very more holistic and three-dimensional. So prevention comes in, health comes in, but also performance comes in. I love to play certain sports. It all connected though with the fact that my granddad died of Alzheimer's as well. So dementia became a kind of a topic in my family, and that's when I really brought all the dots together from my early days to now and to where I see the future going. Being part of the fitness industry for then 20 years, I thought, okay, how can I impact lives in a very, very meaningful way? And how can I spread the word on what I do? So anyway, the programs that we do at the gym I founded, a gym called Sparked in Singapore, encompass all these aspects. So you need strength to be able to do things in your life now with my kids, but also when I'm older, I'm going to have to be strong. Yeah. Menopause, perimenopause before, and osteoporosis, osteopenia, all these things. I need to maintain strength health. Brain health, of course, cognition, so massive importance onto that. I need to maintain balance because I need to prevent falls when I'm older, so super important aspect. And of course, cardiovascular system, so looking at VO2 max and how I maintain my cardiovascular system. Motor skills and coordination, a bit of part of the balancing sort of component as well, but also extremely important to maintain that aspect. So long story to all of that. This is why I founded the company. I'm the founder of Sparked. I'm also head of physical and cognitive performance at a longevity clinic here in Singapore. So I oversee the physical and cognitive program for their clients as well.
Oh, wonderful. That's a very rich story. And I think the beautiful thing is like strength training is having a moment. Like we've all known that all of these components are very, very important. But with the uptick, or not, I wouldn't even say uptick, with the explosion of longevity, all of the components that you're talking about are really going mainstream, not just for the nerds, so to say. They're really being talked about, and they're really being addressed in different services. So I can't wait to dive in a little bit more to find out exactly what that looks like in Sparked. But first, let's connect the dots with Tarek, because actually you guys are working together as well. So I'm going to let you build that bridge as well, with your pathway to longevity and your story in fitness, Tarek.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, my journey started, well, at least professionally, in the fitness industry 24 years ago. That was 2001 of February at a corporate gym. So at that time, I was very much like a sponge. I loved fitness and sport and recreation. I grew up with all of those good things. And so coming into that field, having done a bit of study and a bit of work here and there as a teenager, I thought, well, it's about time that I looked at something serious. So the corporate gym enabled me to kind of learn the ropes, firstly around the administrative and really getting the communication element honed in at that particular gym. And at that point, I wasn't even training clients. So over the years, I just learnt a lot from mentors, firstly from the corporate spectrum, in between travelled, and I continued to learn until I operated my own outdoor facility, or outdoor business, training clients and sort of roaming about. So I was able to train different bodies in the outdoors. That was back in 2007. And then after that, 2008, I thought, well, there's a lack of education around the kettlebell. I was training in the kettlebell a lot, and it was really unknown in Australia at that time. Mm-hmm. And then I met a friend who I helped train up as a coach, and we got together and came up with this sort of idea. And this idea was around just creating a 6-week course for beginners around the kettlebell training tool. And we had 5 people. I remember at that point in time, at that point you thought it's not exactly a good business model, but didn't even think about that at the time. It was just the passion and the belief that this thing is worthy. Yeah. And then it just took off. It took off like wildfire, and I ended up opening up a gym in 2012, which was more functional based in Sydney. And then in 2013, I started to expand the education offerings and collaborated and looked at different concepts that would fall under the umbrella of functional and strength training. And so I was always interested in those different facets of what constitutes fitness and movement, and always interested in meeting people and really learning from some great minds. So I traveled to the US many times and other parts of the world to learn and also academically continue to learn up until this day as well. So, we started to expand our offerings, expand our bandwidth around different modalities, because we felt that consumers needed it, trainers in particular. And so I then opened up another gym in 2019. We brought FTI, Functional Training Institute, worldwide, so mainly through Asia and Middle East, and then we formed partnerships and continued to know that there's an interest up until this very point. So it's taken me around the world, and it's enabled me to meet lots of incredible people, and it's enabled me to have that blessing of being able to learn and experience directly, and that culminated in certainly meeting Anna last year. In June at an event in Singapore itself. So that's sort of my story, and then how kind of it segues into connecting the dots with Anna.
Yeah. I mean, I will say absolutely that's how we met. You're a master networker. Like when you want to connect with someone, you really do reach out, and it's a rare skill, and it's good that you do, because you end up creating conversations that wouldn't otherwise happen. It's a catalyst. So keep doing it. We need more of you.
Yeah. What I will say about that, though, one point is that a lot of the key partnerships that I formed came from having conversations and really getting this intuitive sense to. It's amazing, it's hard to sort of describe intellectually. It's sort of like at first you get this gut instinct or this intuition, you act on that, and then part of that I learned along the way is you put yourself out there, you meet that person halfway, and then what's in it for them, what's in it for you, for example, as Joe Polish would say in his great book, and then you see what magic can happen, and sometimes there's no win-win, as Stephen Covey called it. You just exit, and that's fine. And so I've always looked at those win-win opportunities, and it really opened up some incredible doors through networking and really looking at that win-win, what's in it for them, what's in it for me or FTI. So that's an interesting way to look at things, I think.
Yeah, I think it's vulnerability meets curiosity meets let's see what happens and explore. It's a great adventurous mindset. I love it. So let's dive into the reason that both of you are on this podcast is that we want to explore defining and looking at the opportunities of cognitive fitness training. So I think one of the things around like the longevity hype, and I mean, I think the fitness sector is also really guilty of it, is the jargon. And there's a lot of words that people don't feel like they can keep up with and don't really know what they mean. So let's start there as a foundation. Anna, why don't you start, and then Tarek, I want you to add on and fill in, because it's also your own definitions, right? Let's gut check them and see if they're on the same page. I'm assuming they are. But what is cognitive fitness training?
Sure. So I can start. So cognitive fitness training is really the combination of simultaneously, most of the times, but it can be also done subsequently, physical and cognitive training. So physical training would include all the aspects that we've mentioned just now. So strength, cardio, balance, mobility, motor skills, vestibular proprioception, all of that. So imagine you're selecting one of these components, or maybe you're combining them a little bit, right? So you're doing a cardio exercise, and then you're combining that with a cognitive task. Yeah, so cognition is massive. Cognition encompasses perception, verbal ability. It's basically integrating your sensory stimuli and processing them, and then you're reacting to what you've processed, right? So it's massive. Cognition is massive. It encompasses so many aspects. So memory, attention, focus, even certain elements of motor skills. So if you're combining a physical exercise with a cognitive exercise, now that's where the magic really happens, because your neurons are going all over in your brain, and they are trying to connect, and they are really trying to perform a dual task act. So as we age. So this is, in broad terms, the definition of cognitive fitness training, essentially combining the two aspects. But for general brain health and general physical health, of course, doing even just cardio is helpful. It has massive benefits on our brain. Likewise, doing strength, huge amount of benefits for our brain. So what I'm not suggesting just to do cognitive fitness training, but I'm suggesting a variety of different elements. Anything to add, Tarek?
Yeah. I mean, look, when you look at all of the components of fitness, and Anna touched on that, it's important to look at a well-rounded approach, and oftentimes, and this is dependent on phases of one's development, physically and mentally and spiritually as well. It's, when you're young and perhaps playing sport, it could be conducive to elements of fitness that might be, strength in rugby or power training. And there could be a fad or a phase around that particular fad where it's all aesthetics and I think, herein it is important to understand is that we sort of treat that as a journey, perhaps, as, there might be a phase in your 20s, where it's really strength and power and to look good. Perhaps even in the 30s somewhat, but then, as you start to mature, maybe you start to pick up and broaden your scope and think, well, I can add in agility, I can add in reaction training, and then into your 40s. And this is the whole concept of longevity is, you could look at it decade by decade and certainly look more granular as you start to periodize your own movement journey, not just sort of regarding the fitness spectrum, because there are certain different elements of how one would approach it. So, that's the sort of paradigm shifting that I think individually that people might go through, and certainly I've gone through that and have come to embrace the longevity concept, because I've had severe injuries from sport, and I've been able to heal myself through the expertise of others and my own knowledge, and really come to appreciate longevity and the fact that I could, thank goodness, be able to walk and do a lot of tasks pretty well, for example. But just what Anna was saying about dual tasking, it's that element is an important piece, to sort of add in as depending, even as early as possible. We look at prevention. Prevention is a key aspect, I think, that often is in the fitness game is certainly overlooked, let alone the health preventative side of things. So to look at it maybe from a preventative thing and mix it in with your strength training, your power training, I think is definitely a must, I would say.
Yep. And so you two have actually recorded a podcast, and I want to make sure to point to that, because it's a conversation that's a little bit broader, specifically on cognitive fitness training. We're going to tie into longevity in a minute, but one of the things, first of all, Anna, can you give me more examples of dual tasking? Dual tasking. What does that look like? I'm training. How am I dual tasking when I'm training?
Of course. So dual tasking essentially means doing two tasks simultaneously, and they can be measured separately. So, and they are also non-conflicting in a way. So let me explain a bit more. So you could be doing an audio, you could be listening to an audio command, while you are then responding with a physical task. Or you could be listening to an audio command while you're simultaneously, as you're listening to and maybe responding, doing squats, as an example. So I will give you the instruction, okay, Jennifer, what you're going to be doing, you're going to be squatting continuously while I'm going to give you certain audio cues to where you have to respond, maybe by raising one hand while you're still squatting, or raising the other hand, or touching your nose, or okay, that could be an audio and physical task. Or you could respond to a visual and physical task. So instead of listening to an audio task, you would see, let's say, colors or numbers flashing on a screen. And I would have attached a certain task for you to perform. So in this way, you are doing visual and motor, right? Mm-hmm. So the big thing I always highlight when I explain the concept is it's different from what people consider multitasking. And I've heard lots of some media back in the days, or I get asked this question often, so is dual tasking bad for my brain because it's so taxing? Well, actually, if I'm responding to two same stimuli, so let's say I'm listening to music and I'm trying to maintain a conversation. Now my brain is constantly trying to pay attention to one stimuli and the other, both audio. Now that's going to be quite taxing on my brain, because really I'm probably switching a little bit. So I'm constantly switching. So that can be considered a bit taxing. Or let's say I am on my desk, I'm writing an essay or an article, but I keep checking my phone. Well, that's also a visual, which is also going to be taxing on my brain. And then I'm going to be end up exhausted, right? Whereas if if I was walking and I'm I wouldn't use the example writing an essay, but if I'm doing a cognitive task, maybe just simple reaction games on a desktop while I'm also walking, now that's okay. Now that's dual task, okay? So, and the importance of maintaining this ability is because as we age, our brain also uses this dual task ability. So there's a drop in performance with that.
So,
sense?
I mean, it's like scrambling your senses a little bit. You don't want to double up on one sense. So, not audio, audio, not visual, visual, but visual, physical, fine, audio, physical, fine.
Yes, that's a very good way of explaining it. Now, if we think of real life, though, that's a bit
Hmm.
right. And this is also why I laugh when people say, "Oh, multitask is bad for you." Wow. Well, we live our life in multitasking.
Sure.
There's constant distraction, there's constant stimuli we have to attend to and respond to, right? But this is exactly why doing the two different streams of information is connecting different neuronal pathways and networks that are strengthening as you're doing these tasks and then allow you to continue perform as you age. So
Sure.
yes, you explained it very, very nicely.
And I mean, so I obviously did a little bit of a dive into your background, and modern dance is part of your background. But from what I know about dance, like dance is cognitive fitness training because it's got this complexity. You have to memorize. It continually challenges and accelerates coordination, and I think the thing is with fitness is that we've broken all of those things down into individual Lego components, where in sports or in dance or gymnastics, like they're all combined. So like how do we do that more in fitness, like bring it together a little bit more so that we're challenging people to reach a little bit, more than they currently are, because just cardio is very simple and quite boring.
Totally. So I love this question because you are 100% right. Dance is super good for the brain, and there are different types of dances, right? Dances that you can do a dance that is more creative and imaginative, right? So you're
Hmm.
improvising, for instance. So that's certainly tapping into different parts of the brain. Or you're doing a dance where you're memorizing visually certain steps. So that's working on your visual memory. So
Hmm.
already in itself, there are so many different you're working on different domains as itself. Now, when it comes to um, adding this component of responding to stimuli, acting to stimuli within a gym environment, I'm in a, s- I've created this gym that has all these sensory stimuli, but sometimes I laugh with myself because I think, wow, the concept of gym is so crazy. I mean, back in the days, we used to lift, right? Anyway,
Yeah.
we used to carry things around. We didn't need a gym. We would move anyway. But the reality is, our lives have become so sedentary that we have to create spaces where we actually do stuff that we were doing naturally, decades and years ago. So it's a bit the same with the cognitive motor training. In a sense, before we used to go hunting for our food, and we were
Hmm.
using all these stimuli, this sensory system, to integrate and then react and catch the prey faster. And how am I catching this prey? And
Yeah.
da da da. Whereas now we are having to recreate certain stimuli because we sit at the desk all day and all we do is we look at a computer and we look at our phone and we miss on so much. We lose that depth perception, we lose that field of vision, we lose the ability to react to situation in changing environments essentially. So one of the reasons I did create Sparked is, yes, to bring along those components as well and also try to make them accessible. But at the same time, performance is a big thing because, yes, we can carry on in our lives. And people would ask, hey, but if I just carry on doing what I'm doing, I'm always multitasking anyway. Yes,
Hmm.
but you're not stretching your performance. And
Right.
as you're aging, you will continue to age faster. So as we get older, unfortunately, we have to put more effort in to counterbalance the decline. So
Right.
yes, you should and you have to do this type of training because if you want to perform better in life, and who doesn't want to perform better in life?
Of course.
But also if you want to slow down your aging, Yeah,
Yeah.
you kind of really have to do it.
Yeah, particularly like things like reaction time, which will degenerate as well, as Anna pointed out earlier. Your agility and those components of fitness that are so essential to perhaps prevent a fall, or in the case of there being a fall, how to react, and all of those things are very important as one starts to age, of course, and avoid those horrendous things that could cause massive grief, as in a fall.
Slow you down and
break a hip or an ankle. But of course, it's not bulletproof. But the idea is to prevent down the track something like that happening. And just to Anna's point earlier, it's certainly, if we look at it from a commercial sense, and I've trained in many different gyms, and I've taught trainers all around the world in different gyms and environments. By and large, yes, it's that collective mindset, if you like, of how the gym is structured. And however, there is an evolution that has occurred in big gyms, where once upon a time you never saw what we'd call functional equipment, where it's not just about the heavy lifting and the one-dimensional component of fitness or machine weights, right? So you had the Joe Weirder and the Arnie sort of the 70s and 80s, and that was a phase, right? So so the idea of the functional stuff, I think, definitely helps to propel an opening up of possibilities, and that being a place where cognitive fitness could be a part of a commercial gym. And that could take time to do, but we're going to look at the landscapes, the present landscape of a typical gym, notwithstanding that certainly people like Anna and those out there who do have created a commercialized facility. In one sense, it could be radical, where Anna's is totally that, and that's great. But how do we then create a hybrid or an element where cognitive fitness does sit in? And that's the big question, and I think where Anna and I kind of fit into a collaboration.
Yep. So that's actually maybe a lovely bridge for this. Like, what is the business case for cognitive fitness training? Why would I consider adding cognitive fitness training as a pillar to my programming? As a club owner, like to add to recreational centers. I mean, it's not just gyms. And I think, we've grown up in the fitness space. So you think about, like, you can directly apply it to fitness. You see exactly how it fits in. But when you answer this question, I want you to stretch your brain a little bit and tell me where else it could fit outside of a traditional gym, because I definitely think that there's adjacent businesses that could also benefit from adding this as a service.
Definitely. The focus has been fitness, but I'll let Anna, because Anna's doing stuff directly in the medical space too. So Anna, you might want to talk a little bit about that, and then I'll piggyback of where the benefits would fit for other sectors.
Yeah. I mean, there's huge scope and benefits. It's a bit like what you were saying that, 15 years ago when I was teaching weightlifting to women, lots of people were like cringing and going, oh my God, and women were like, oh, I don't want to bulk up. I don't want to look like that. You remember those days, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I used to go crazy. And all they wanted to do was Pilates and yoga. And I, of course, got certified to also do Pilates and yoga to show them I also do Pilates and yoga. But I also weightlift very heavy, okay? And I'm not Arnie, okay? So you can still do good. But anyway, I just wanted to throw that in. But I think what's going to happen with the cognitive fitness is the same thing. So right now we have so I want to call them innovative people or very smart. I also say you're very smart because you're embracing this, because you understand.
Early adopters. Yeah.
Yeah. Because you really understand the importance of looking after your cognition and your brain health, and you're taking action. I mean, I can bring examples of when I opened this 4 years ago. People thought the gym was for people with neurological conditions only and brain health, and they didn't want the stigma. Oh, I'm training in a brain gym. That's crazy. Like, I don't want to be associated with that. Actually, in years to come, it's going to be cool to train in a brain gym because I'm uber smart and I know that I can perform better. So it's just changing. And there's a lot of research coming out, and there's a lot of focus on this topic, which is amazing and great. And of course, from research that filters down into the media, into articles, and it becomes more mainstream. People start realizing, wow, okay, for brain health, I need to exercise. And maybe that's the first step for a lot of people. But then when they start digging deeper, and the consumers are getting savvier and savvier, they have access to so much knowledge, and they're curious, they want more. So going to a gym that will only offer your static machines and maybe a Smith machine and a couple of treadmills, it's not going to cut it anymore at some point. So the industry has to evolve, and I think it's really going to happen quite fast.
And I think the accessibility too. You don't necessarily need expensive equipment, although Anna's facility is quite impressive. But certainly Anna would know that you can do things without having really much equipment at all. Colouring and doing a task, for example, or getting that audio feedback as Anna described. So, that could be nursing homes, it could be hotels. We could look at it being in recreational spaces and clubs and so forth. So it's not just for a typical gymnasium or a fitness centre. I think we're going to see that it could be easily accepted and adopted within hotels where you have something on the screen and then you respond and you've got your implements or your pieces of equipment to perform the task. So again, that's the other benefit, I think, of this cognitive fitness training that we're calling it at the moment, is that it's very low cost. It's a low barrier to entry for cost. It's portable. All it takes is the knowledge, hence why Anna and myself coming together to synthesize a body of knowledge that makes it accessible for the professional, whether they're a health, fitness, wellness professional, but really anyone who's loves knowledge and loves movement and this concept of bettering themselves, and longevity certainly too.
Yeah, and I mean that's the other part. So what you're saying is, so I think a couple of things. I think the cognitive fitness training, it doesn't read to me like hardcore fitness. It reads to me like fun. I'm doing more things at once than just going in and sweating. I'm working on myself in a more holistic way, right? So that I think that's one thing, and that messaging is going to attract a different audience than maybe your typical gym goer. And for a lot of, at least on the fitness side, the question has always been, how do we not just make the fit fitter? How do we build that bridge for the people who have just been put off by the idea of a fitness center? And to me, positioning this as a service is a wonderful bridge for that, because you're addressing another audience that might have some other priorities. So I think that's really good. I think what I'm hearing from you is, like, to offer this from an equipment standpoint, of course, there's a whole range. You could go, very high or very low, but there's very low barriers to create a formula for this. And then, we can look to examples like Sparked to show the way for us, like, how do you create this immersive concept? Whether it's concept or you just want to take it over, reach out to Anna. But then you've got the programming, and then you also have the professional that needs to understand how to service this group. And I think that's where you come in with Functional Training Institute, Tarek.
Yeah, somewhat. What I did want to share though is even at the last FIBO event. So this is last month, April 2025. They had their different zones, right? And one of the zones was the sort of functional and new stuff out there, which there wasn't much of, to be fair. Yeah. A great event, but there was Blaze Pods, who Anna works with, and we're looking at collaborating with, and it was so much interest and so much of the gamification around just Blaze Pods itself. A lot of young people there, buffed up and whatnot, who were trying to do their best to kind of react to the lights. And I thought it's a key element that you mentioned there, Jennifer, is the gamification side of it. Could be one aspect of this cognitive fitness training. And in fact, one of my good friends and mentors, Ian O'Dwyer, really inspired me to just take balloons. So what I do now to this day is when I go to my workshops, I get them in groups of 4 or 5, and we might have different balloons that are coloured. And so from there, we could go on one leg, balloon, pass it around with your left only, right only, and that opens up people. It brings smiles, it brings laughter. But there are these other hidden elements that are happening, namely that dual tasking that Anna was saying, even in that setting, and that sort of sets the tone usually for me to have a great workshop. So the game, I thought I'd touch on the gamification element as being quite important here. And the second thing I did want to touch on, and Anna, you might want to dive into this, and it was really sparked actually, pun not intended, when I sat in on Anna's lecture around dual tasking, but also the fact that all of these apps out there, name a few, that what's one of the apps?
Brain HQ.
So basically using an app to try to get your brain more sharper has been shown not to be as effective as dual tasking, because you're not embodying that particular activity. So the idea of the brain body connection is so important here. So did you want to expand a little bit more on that? Because I think it's an important point as to if you want to get the neural pathways strengthened.
I want to add a question before we tag it to Anna, because it's like, okay, how do you measure cognitive fitness? How do you tell you're getting better? Like, what are the KPIs? Because that's the other thing, is like, it's better, and then better is this big vague void. So what is better? How do we tell? How do we test? Is this included in what you offer your clients at Sparked?
Yeah, and I just wanted to contrast it between the app where you're not dual tasking. So Anna, over to you.
Yeah. Guys, wow, so many questions. So many things. Okay. I'll start back to one comment one thing you said, Jennifer. Actually, yes, you're 100% right that the gamification and maybe it's more attractive to new users. Okay, people that have not exercised for a long time and don't want to go to a regular gym. Yes. But there's one thing that actually, from a physical perspective, it's actually a really challenging workout, okay? And it can be very challenging. So I just want to highlight that as well, because some people may have a misconception that actually, it's going to be an easy workout, but actually, you walk out of a session and you've really worked very, very hard. And as a matter of fact, the training is done by lots of elite athletes. In fact, before Sparked, it was when I researched the whole market, it was either neurological center, brain health centers, or elite athletes. So they are really doing this training for high performance. But going then back to the conversation on dual tasking and why it's more effective than normal apps, is exactly for the same reason as well. Because when you're starting to pump your heart, right? Mm-hmm. Blood flow to the brain. Lots of things are happening in the brain for neuroplasticity. So there are hormones that are being released, BDNF, which is like fertilizer for the brain. So lots of things are happening when we're starting to raise our heart rate, and exercising. So this is one of the reasons why dual tasking is more effective than just sitting in front of a computer, tapping on a screen and reacting. I'm not raising my heart rate, I'm not doing anything. Nothing is happening. And I've actually looked at this with EEG on my head and on various people I test this with, and you can see more blood oxygenation in the prefrontal cortex of the brain as I'm doing this. So yes, so that's one thing. But also, as previously mentioned, because if you're doing the physical and cognitive tasks simultaneously, different neuronal pathways are trying to connect and interact. So that's also the reason why recent studies in science are showing that it's more effective than doing a simple app. Now, there are studies that show effectiveness on apps as well, so I'm not here to say the opposite. But when you're combining the two, especially for a longevity perspective, you're getting fitter physically and at the same time cognitively. And how to measure to the last point. So how do we measure that? Well, there's a lot of ways, of course, from a physical perspective, lots of physical testing. You can check your VO2 max, you can check your strength, whether you're doing a 1-rep max, or you're testing your muscle endurance. Are you testing lower body, upper body? Are you testing your balancing skills, right? Easy. There's a lot out there. But from a cognitive perspective, how do I know where my cognition is? Well, an easy way to do it is to do a cognitive validated test. And again, there are the various providers out there, but check. And it's never too early to check. Yeah. Where are my cognitive domains? Where am I? And how do I compare against my peers for my gender? Yeah. So then you can start seeing and getting a report of like, okay, this is where my working memory is. This is where my spatial skills are. So you're getting a first initial snapshot of your cognition.
Yeah.
There are other tools. Then there are more sort of on the intervention side of things that are very, very good at tracking your performance. For others, the technologies, some of the ones I work with as well, are hopefully slowly catching up in being a bit more refined in what they track. But there are certain metrics. So even doing a validated test at regular intervals, it's already a good start. Of course, you can go into more sophisticated tools and you can track that, blood markers or doing an MRI or EEG in some contexts is more validated than others, but or just even testing reaction time with certain tools. How quick am I to react to certain stimuli? So, yeah.
So there's like the whole range. So from like reaction time, which is something you could test anywhere, to maybe these cognitive tests, which would be like something you do online, to an MRI. Okay, so it's like depending on how much you want to invest, and it's always good to have a baseline. Like the blood tests and the testing that you can do right now it's like so far advanced from what was available 10 years ago. So I would have loved to have had a hormonal baseline back in the day, but I didn't take it. So I guess that's one of the calls to action is go ahead and find a test that can be your cognitive baseline. And maybe that's something, if you wouldn't mind sending me some resources, and then we'll link to that in the podcast. Is like these can just be things that you refer to, can integrate in your program, or can consider integrating into your program, because people like to know how it's working and where they're starting and where they're getting. Like, progress is important. So we've actually we're cresting that time window in our podcast. It's just absolutely flying, and I think it's always the case that you get started and you're like, oh wow, we've got to
we've been in flow.
We've got to wrap things up. I've got two questions for you both, and one of them is, if you had $10 million, 10 million euros, 10 million, whatever currency you are, wherever in the world, equivalent, to invest in a longevity company, can't be your own, where would you put the money?
Oh, God. That's a good question, an intriguing one.
Is it one that exists already or doesn't exist?
I mean, now this is blue sky. So my only caveat was you couldn't put it back in your own. So you have to think about. So if you want to start up, there you go.
Yeah, I'd invest in Anna's concept and say, hey Anna, can you partner with me?
Yeah.
I mean, I personally invest, I wouldn't name any names, and I don't even know if it's out there, but I would invest in a scalable digital platform that actually creates a really integrated, encompassing intervention into, I don't want to say just dual tasking, but linking exercise to cognition properly. Yeah, I would put my money there. Whether I lose it or not, but that's my mission. So
I mean, it's your money, so that's the blue sky in this.
And I gave her my money too, so
yeah. Oh, okay.
20 million.
20. Amazing. And then last question is sort of a pay it forward. So is there anyone doing work in the longevity space that you'd just like to give a shout out to who's doing great work?
Anna can answer that, I think, better. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, look, my dear good friend, Professor Andrea Meyer at NUS, National University of Singapore. She's also the medical director and founder of this clinic called Chi Longevity. She's relentlessly furthering the field of longevity medicine, and I really massively look up to her. She's incredible. So she's really doing great work in pushing the field. So yeah. Wonderful.
Well, thank you both for a wonderful conversation, and
thanks, Jen.
Wishing you continued success and continued innovation. And we will link to you in the description of the podcast if anyone wants to connect or get more information. Thanks so much.
It's been terrific. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Connecting the Dots. If today sparked a new idea, helped shift your thinking, or gave you something to take forward, share it, rate the show, or drop us a message. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next conversation. Until then, keep connecting the dots that matter.